It was the 1980s when I first heard about the mystery that still haunts the halls of my high school to this day. I was just a freshman, new to the school, and like everyone else, I had my locker, a place where you keep your books, your lunch, and sometimes your secrets. But there was one locker in particular that had a story all its own. It belonged to Sarah, a quiet and introverted girl who nobody really knew well. She was the kind of student who slipped in and out of class without drawing attention, never speaking unless spoken to. No one could have predicted what would happen to her or how her disappearance would haunt the school for years to come. It was late September when Sarah went missing. She was last seen at her locker, the one on the second floor near the science wing. I remember hearing rumors about it in the halls the next day. Her locker was left untouched, her books still inside. No one knew where she had gone, and as days turned into weeks, the mystery grew. Some thought she ran away, others feared something far worse had happened, but the truth was, nobody really knew. But the real chilling part didn't come until after her disappearance. That's when students started reporting strange things. It started with whispers, the kind of whispers you could barely make out, coming from Sarah's locker late at night. Some said it was just the wind, others that it was their imaginations running wild, but I knew better. I had walked by that locker countless times, and every time something felt off. A few weeks after she vanished, I stayed late to finish a report for English. It was around 9 p.m. when I passed by the locker area on my way out. The school was quiet, too quiet. I paused when I heard it, the unmistakable sound of whispering. It was faint, but there, like a distant murmur. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. I looked around, half expecting to see one of the janitors or a teacher, but the hallway was empty, no one else was there. Curiosity got the best of me and I cautiously stepped closer to the locker. The whispering grew louder, as if someone was right behind it, trying to speak without being noticed. I could feel my skin crawl, but I had to know what was happening. I stared at the locker, trying to convince myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But then, I noticed something strange. The locker door was slightly ajar. I reached out, my fingers trembling as I gripped the cool metal handle. As I pulled it open, my breath caught in my throat. Inside there was nothing out of the ordinary except for a small piece of paper. A note. It was handwritten, in messy, shaky letters. "Help me. I'm still here." I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My heart raced as a chill ran down my spine. I slammed the locker shut and ran out of there faster than I ever had before. That night, I couldn't sleep. The image of that note kept flashing in my mind. Who had written it, and why did Sarah's locker still seem to hold some sort of presence? The next morning, rumors spread like wildfire. Some of the older students, the ones who had been in the school longer than I had, told me the whispers were nothing new. It had been happening for months, ever since Sarah's disappearance. Some of them claimed they'd seen a shadowy figure standing in front of the locker late at night. Others swore they heard footsteps echoing in the hallway, only to turn around and find no one there. One evening, the janitor went to clean the locker area, as he had done countless times before. But this time, something was different. He noticed the locker door was slightly open, just like I had. He stepped inside and took a quick look around, expecting nothing more than the usual dust and trash. But when he turned to leave, something caught his eye. A small note, crumpled and half hidden behind the textbooks Sarah had left behind. He picked it up, his hands shaking as he read the words, "Help me, I'm still here." That night, the school board decided to seal the locker off. They taped it up and put a sign on it saying it was no longer to be accessed. They even changed the locks. But no matter what they did, the whispers didn't stop. For years, students continued to report the strange occurrences. Some claimed to hear the whispers again, while others swore they saw Sarah's shadow near the locker. The locker was left untouched, a chilling reminder of something that no one could explain. I never walked by that locker again, and to this day, I still hear whispers when I think about it, soft, eerie whispers, as though Sarah is still out there trying to reach out. And then, there's the question that haunts me the most: is she still there? It was a rainy night in the fall of 1979 when I first heard the story about the basement at my high school. I was sitting in the cafeteria, trying to make small talk with some friends when one of the seniors, a guy named Mark, casually mentioned it. "Don't go into the basement alone," he said, his voice almost too nonchalant. "They say you can hear her crying down there. The girl who," well, she ended it all. His tone was oddly light for such a dark subject, but I could tell by the way the other students around him shifted uncomfortably in their seats that there was more to the story than just a casual warning. I didn't think much about it at the time. You know how high school rumors go. There's always a ghost story, a creepy tale that circulates among students, passed from one person to the next. But the more I heard about it, the more the legend of Emily, the crying girl, stuck with me. Emily wasn't someone I knew personally. She was quiet, introverted, the kind of girl who blended into the background. No one paid much attention to her, not really. She wasn't particularly popular, nor did she excel academically. She simply existed, living in the shadows of her classmates' lives. But in retrospect, I can see that Emily wasn't invisible, she was just unseen. It wasn't until after her tragic death that the school began to notice her. Emily had been a victim of relentless bullying, but it wasn't just the occasional name-calling, it was worse. It was isolation, cruelty, taunts that never stopped. The students who targeted her were cruel, finding joy in making her feel small, insignificant, and Emily, well, she had taken it, day after day, until she couldn't anymore. One afternoon, in the spring of 1974, Emily made a choice. She took her life in the basement of the school, a place that, until then, had been little more than a storage area. Mostly forgotten by the students who spent their time in classrooms or the gym. But Emily, in her desperation, chose that basement as her final refuge. She hung herself in the dim light of that forsaken space, where no one would find her in time. After her death, rumors spread like wildfire. It didn't take long for students to start hearing strange things. At first, it was subtle, just odd noises echoing from the basement late at night. The janitors who worked the late shifts were the first to report it. Creaks, they said. Sounds of something moving down there, something dragging across the floor. Some students would claim to have heard faint crying, as if a girl was sobbing in the distance. But the crying wasn't ordinary, it was unnatural, hollow, like it was coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. I didn't think much about it until my sophomore year, in the fall of 1980. Halloween was coming up and the school was buzzing with excitement. There was a group of us who had made a tradition of exploring the so-called haunted parts of the school. This year, the basement was on our list. The air was thick with rumors, and I couldn't resist. I had to see it for myself. That night, Sarah, my best friend, and a few others met by the entrance to the basement. The hallways were quieter than usual, the school eerily still. We had stayed late to finish up some homework, and the idea of exploring seemed like the perfect way to wind down. But something felt wrong as we stood by the basement door. It was as if the building was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. As we descended the creaky stairs, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us. The basement was colder than I'd imagined, the air thick with dust and decay. The fluorescent lights flickered intermittently, casting long, jagged shadows along the walls. The faint smell of mildew hung in the air, and the floor beneath our feet groaned with every step we took. Sarah grabbed my arm, her face pale. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. I stopped, straining to listen. At first it was nothing, then I heard it, faint, almost imperceptible. A soft sobbing sound. It wasn't loud, but it was there, echoing through the basement like the cry of someone lost and alone. I froze. The others had heard it too. The sound of someone in pain, someone crying in the darkness. It wasn't normal. My stomach churned as the weight of the atmosphere began to press in on me. We were in the place where Emily had died, the very spot where she had felt so hopeless, so invisible. Her pain lingered here, in the air, in the walls. "Maybe it's just the pipes," one of the others suggested, trying to sound brave, but even his voice cracked with fear. No one believed him. We ventured further, my heart hammering in my chest. The sobbing grew louder as we walked deeper into the basement, and it felt as if the space itself was closing in on us. The walls were bare, except for peeling paint and a few scattered, broken pieces of furniture. Then, we saw it. A shadow moved across the far wall. A figure, it was standing there, just past the flickering light. At first it looked like nothing more than a trick of the light, but as we stepped closer it became clearer. A girl, she was hunched over, her back to us. Her hair hung in front of her face, masking her features. She didn't move. She just stood there, trembling as the sobs filled the room. "Is it her?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. We all stood frozen, unsure of what to do. And then, without warning, the figure turned. Slowly, deliberately. The room seemed to darken, the air growing colder with each passing second. Her face, oh God, her face, oh God, her face. It was pale, like a mask. Her eyes were black, empty, like they had never seen the light of day. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Just a blank, hollow stare that seemed to pierce through us. I didn't wait for anyone else. I turned and ran. My heart raced in my chest, my breath ragged and sharp. We all ran, not daring to look back until we reached the stairwell. The sobbing still echoed in my mind, like it was following me, like it would never stop. After that night, I couldn't sleep. The sound of her crying haunted me, and it wasn't just in the basement. It followed me, whispered through my dreams. I remember walking by the stairs every day, the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. Every time I passed the door to the basement, I swore I could hear it, faint sobs, desperate, broken. Emily was still there, still crying. We never went back to the basement after that. The school had to put up signs, warning students not to enter. Some said it was because of the safety concerns down there, but I always suspected it had something to do with what we had seen, what we had heard. I don't know if Emily's spirit ever found peace, but sometimes I wonder if it ever will. And sometimes, in the dead of night, when the world is quiet, I swear I can still hear her crying. It was the late 1960s when Mrs. Whitmore became a legend at our high school in Texas. I didn't know her personally, but I had heard of her. Everyone had. She was known for being tough but fair, strict, but with a warmth that only the students who truly needed it saw. Mrs. Whitmore taught history, and she was passionate about it. You could always hear her voice ringing through the halls, her words full of purpose and conviction, as she made history come alive for those lucky enough to sit in her classroom. Her classroom was always spotless, always organized, always alive with the hum of students diligently working away at their assignments. Everyone respected her, even if they feared her. She demanded excellence and wasn't afraid to call out students who didn't meet her expectations. Her voice was commanding, but there was always a kindness behind it. She was one of those teachers who made an impact, whether you realized it or not. But none of that matters now, not after that fateful afternoon when everything changed. I wasn't in Mrs. Whitmore's class when it happened. I was in the lunchroom goofing off with my friends. When word spread like wildfire, she was giving a lecture on the Roman Empire when she suddenly collapsed. Just like that, no warning. One moment she was teaching, as usual, and the next, she crumpled to the floor. Students rushed to help, but it was too late. The teacher who had shaped so many lives, the one who had been a constant figure of authority in the school, was gone. It was a shock to the entire school. It didn't feel real. Mrs. Whitmore had been so full of life, so energetic, she couldn't have just disappeared like that, could she? It felt like the school had lost its heartbeat, like something vital had been taken away. The school mourned her death, of course, but even during the mourning, things began to happen. Small things at first subtle, almost dismissible. The janitors would tell stories of feeling an unexplained chill as they walked past her classroom late at night. Some teachers reported hearing soft scratching noises coming from the walls, like nails on a chalkboard. But when they checked, the room was empty at first. No one made much of it. After all, schools are old, and sometimes the pipes and walls make strange noises. But those who spent any amount of time near Mrs. Whitmore's old classroom began to notice something else. There was a presence there. The desks would sometimes be moved around, slightly out of place, as if someone had been sitting there. But there was never anyone there. It was as if Mrs. Whitmore herself had been caught in the ether of her own classroom, still teaching, still present, but trapped in the space between life and death. The real terror started when I stayed late one night in the fall of 1981. I had a big project due, and it was one of those nights when I just couldn't bring myself to go home. The school was quiet, almost too quiet, and I was the only one left in the library, surrounded by nothing but books and the sound of my own typing. As the clock ticked past 9 p.m., I noticed the hallway lights flickering. It was odd because the lights in the school were usually quite reliable, but there was something unsettling about the way they flickered that night, like a warning, like something was about to happen. I didn't think much of it at first, but when I got up to grab another book, I saw it. The door to Mrs. Whitmore's classroom was slightly ajar. At first I thought it was just a draft, but then something caught my eye, a shadow, moving inside. I hesitated. I wanted to leave, to pretend I hadn't seen anything, but my curiosity got the best of me. I walked down the hall toward her classroom, my steps echoing louder than I liked in the stillness of the school. The door creaked as I pushed it open. The room was dark, but I could see the faintest outline of someone at the desk. Mrs. Whitmore's desk. I stood frozen in the doorway, unable to move. It was her, or at least it looked like her, but she wasn't quite right. The figure was transparent, flickering in and out of focus, as though it wasn't really there at all. Her back was to me, but I could see her hands, thin, pale hands resting on the desk. She was bent over, scribbling something on the chalkboard, but there was no chalk. The words, though, were still forming, appearing as if they were being written by an invisible hand. The air around me grew colder and I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I took a step forward, unable to pull myself away. The room felt suffocating, heavy with an energy I couldn't explain. The faint scratching sound filled the air, the same sound that had been reported by the janitors, the same sound that I now realized was the sound of a chalkboard being written on. I should have left. I should have run out of that room and never looked back, but I couldn't. My legs felt like they were rooted to the spot, my breath shallow as I watched her. Suddenly she stopped writing. The room fell dead silent, and for a split second I thought I heard her breathe, but it wasn't a normal breath. It was shallow, almost like a sigh, like a deep, eternal longing. She turned then slowly, so slowly, and her eyes met mine. Her gaze was piercing, unblinking. There was no recognition in her eyes, only a haunting emptiness. Her lips parted, and I could barely hear the words that escaped them. "I'm still here." The voice was soft, but it wasn't hers. It sounded like a faint echo, distant and wrong. My heart pounded in my chest and I took a step back, but the door slammed shut behind me, trapping me in the room. The cold intensified and the lights flickered again. I could feel the weight of her gaze on me, even though she wasn't looking at me anymore. She had turned back toward the chalkboard, continuing to write slowly, deliberately. But the words she wrote were not from any history lesson. They were different. The words were nonsensical at first, jumbled, but they became clearer the more I stared. It was a name, my name. "You will never leave." That was when the panic set in. I could feel my breath quicken, my heart racing as the room seemed to close in around me. I wanted to scream, but no sound would come out. I was frozen, trapped in her classroom with the ghost of a woman who was supposed to be dead. Without warning, the lights went out completely. Total darkness. I don't know how long I stood there. It felt like hours, but when the lights flickered back on, Mrs. Whitmore was gone. Her desk was empty. The chalkboard was clean. But I could still feel her presence. It lingered in the air, thick and heavy. I ran out of that room, out of the school, and I never returned after dark. No one else ever mentioned seeing her again. But sometimes, I swear I hear that faint scratching sound late at night, like someone is still writing on a chalkboard somewhere, far away, in a room that no one dares to enter. Mrs. Whitmore never truly left. I don't think she ever will.